Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I hope you are having a great day. Today's story includes paternity test, mistrust, secrets, relationship problems and favoritism between siblings. Let's start. Am I the idiot for getting a paternity test on my son who doesn't look like me? By Throw R.A. Biological Kid. I'm a 29-year-old white guy, my wife is 30 and black, we have 2 kids, a 3-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. My wife got pregnant with our son early in our relationship. We had only been together a year, we got married because she got pregnant. Fortunately for us, we are actually happy. When my son was born, I accepted him as mine, however, I couldn't help noticing how little he looked like me. He is noticeably darker than my wife, he doesn't look half white, my family and friends have asked if I'm sure he's mine. I had doubts, but I initially decided to trust my wife, I loved my son regardless. When our son was 2, my wife had our daughter, I had no doubt she's mine. She looks just like me, she even has my blue eyes, I never realized how powerful it is to know a child is yours. I bonded with her easier because there wasn't the question of paternity dangling over our heads. My family bonded with her faster too, her resemblance to me convinced me that my son is not mine. I tried to always treat them equally as I see them both as my children, but I realized I was beginning to resent my son, it felt unfair that I had to care for someone else's child. I also began to resent my wife because I felt she had betrayed me. I finally got a paternity test in secret, I was relieved to learn that my son is in fact mine, genetics are weird. Yes, they are. Anyways, that was 4 months ago and my relationship with my wife and son improved dramatically, I feel much closer to him now than I know he's mine. My wife and I have been so happy that we were talking about a 3rd child. I confessed to my wife I got a paternity test, I hated keeping the secret and I thought she would understand given how much he doesn't look like me. She flipped out. Yeah, with reason. She asked me if I ever doubted our daughter, and when I said no, she called me racist. It's not true, I didn't prefer my daughter because of her whiter features, I just knew she was mine. She also said that I made our son feel unloved for no reason for all those years. I said that's bull, even when I didn't believe my son was mine, I treated him as though he were. My wife says she wants to move out and take our children after the quarantine. It's been about a week and a half, and I'm still on the sofa. I hoped she would have calmed down by now, but things haven't changed, she's just so furious with me for not trusting her and for in her eyes, denying my son because he's dark. She barely talks to me unless it's about the kids, I don't want to lose my family. Here's where I turn to you all, is it so awful that I had doubts? I still took care of him. I don't understand why something like this is wrecking my marriage, I think she is overreacting. So, am I the idiot? OP also tell us in the comments. It didn't really begin bothering me until my daughter was born. At that point I wasn't sure I wanted to know, in hindsight I wish I had gotten it when I first noticed how different he looks. You neglected your son for years because you couldn't be bothered to do some research on genetics, and just assumed your mixed race kids would automatically look like the stereotype in your head. I never neglected my son, he's always been loved and cared for. Not my proudest moment, I was wrong. You should try to repair the damage you did, admit your faults and you might have a chance of keeping your family together. I always intended to treat my children equally, if there were times I was unknowingly showing favoritism towards my daughter, it won't happen again. I got the DNA test when I started to resent him because I didn't want it to make me a bad father, I agreed that doubting my wife was a mistake. My children have always mostly been treated equally. My parents spend around the same amount on them for birthdays and holidays, they both are spoiled rotten by their grandparents. My brother was very convinced that my son is not mine, however I did tell him he is to treat my children the same. But you're contradicting yourself, you literally said in the post that you were beginning to resent your child. You messed up completely, and the only thing you should be doing is begging for forgiveness. I got a paternity test to either confirm or deny my suspicions because I wanted better for my son. If I wasn't his father, he deserved to know who his actual father was, but I'm so happy to be his father. I always wondered if my son's biological father would someday show up, I think as a protection for my family, and I were a little hesitant to get close to a child that another man may have come and claimed. Doesn't mean my son isn't loved, he is very loved. My daughter's eye color is not the only reason I knew she was mine, she looks just like me. She has my nose, eyes, dimples, she has my wife's lips, but everything else looks like me. I think my son will be tall like me and he seems to be thin like I am, but I can't see a lot of resemblance between him and I. I also wrongly believed that it was an oddity for him to be darker than his mother, when he has a white father. He looks somewhat like my wife, but he is not her twin, he doesn't look much like other family members. My son and daughter don't look like siblings. Did your wife ever cheat? Did you ever suspect she was spending time with someone who she might sleep with or who might hurt her? Did you have any other indication in your world that this child wasn't yours, aside from his skin color? I had doubts, but I wasn't fully convinced he wasn't mine until I saw how much my daughter looks like me. No, my wife has never cheated to my knowledge, it was early on in our relationship that she got pregnant with our son. We were younger, I don't think she would ever cheat now. When my wife was pregnant with our son, I didn't question that he was mine. We'd been seeing each other a year and I never had reason to think she cheated. We got married before my wife was showing. When our son was born I didn't think he looked like me, but still believed him to have been mine. A few of my family members would comment on how he doesn't look at all like me. My brother from the start did not think he was my son. I still wanted to believe he was mine, but I did notice how he'd gotten darker than my wife, and didn't seem to have any of my features. Then when my daughter was born and I saw what I thought a child between my wife and I would more likely look like, I stopped believing he was my son. I still treated him like he was my son because I didn't want to lose my family. In the end I realized I had to know. I was planning to either try to work it out with my wife, or leave her and get joint custody of our daughter. Thankfully he is my son. So, you raised your son for 5 years, and had the paternity test shown you weren't his father you would have abandoned him completely? And you think somehow you were treating him all along pretty much like he was your kid and your relationship hasn't suffered? I would not have abandoned him, I would have sought out joint custody with him as well. That's not what you said above, you said daughter. If he were not my son then I'd have no rights to visitation. If you are on his birth certificate, you claimed paternal rights in most states. You would have visitation rights until proven otherwise, but you already proved that he's yours, so. Well, if I were not his father I would have likely continued to be his father and fought for visitation. However, I don't know if I would have been able to put him and I through that. Thankfully it's not a choice I will have to make because he is mine. What were you going to do if the paternity test had revealed he wasn't your son? I wasn't certain, but I was leaning heavily towards adopting him and staying married. So, what steps are you going to take to try to repair what you've done? Because all I see you doing in these posts is trying to insist you've done nothing wrong. I want to be a good father to my children, I do the best that I can with them. No matter what happens between my wife and I'm going to have my kids. Well OP, you're the idiot. I understand that living with the uncertainty of knowing whether or not you are the biological father of your child sucks, to say the least, so I understand why you decided to take the test. But the way you handled this situation is the problem, lying to your wife, doing everything behind her back, that was wrong. Genetics can be complicated, and you should have talked to your wife about your doubts from the beginning, and you both could have worked it out together, but the way you did it, you really messed up. I can't say you did the wrong thing by doing the DNA test, because spending your life with this uncertainty would be hard, but the truth is, whatever your decision was, before or now, it would affect your marriage. Because by doing this you basically accused your wife of being a cheater, who trapped you into marriage with a pregnancy, with a child that wasn't yours. That's a lot. And I know we've heard stories of people finding out years later that they're not the biological father of their children, so for that reason alone I don't think OP is the idiot completely. But for the secrets and the way you dealt with your wife, I think you are. Also, even if you say you didn't treat your son differently, it's quite possible that you did, intentionally or not, you probably did. And if your family also doubted he wasn't yours, it's quite possible that they didn't, and still don't, treat him the same way they treat your daughter. And what do you guys think of this situation? What would you do in OP's shoes? What advice would you give him? Don't forget to leave your thoughts down below. Now let's read the comments, before going to the update. You are the idiot, she is absolutely not overreacting. You not only did not trust your wife, you let your ignorance get in the way of you bonding with your child. I mean, what did you think was going to happen when you had biracial children? It's not always a perfect mocha mixture of both parents. You may get that, you may get a kid who is white as a vampire or as dark as Wesley Snipes. You really need to suck it up and beg for forgiveness, and then you need to fix that ignorant way of thinking that you have. Your son is going to need you. Being a black man in this world is not easy. You married a black woman and for some reason got confused one of your children ended up black? Please take a high school level biology course or something. You are the idiot. You are the idiot. 1. If you had suspicions, you should have discussed with your wife first. You went behind her back to get a paternity test, which is definitely a big no in my view. 2. You waited so long to clear your suspicions, you did not bond with your son, thereby making him feel left out. 3. Before resolving your suspicions, you went for a second kid. Your oldest must have clearly felt his father showing differences in how he treats his two kids. 4. You felt guilty of your actions and revealed the test to your wife. If you were really that self-righteous, you would have not gone behind her back. Now you clearly disrupted your wife's trust too. I don't think she will ever forgive you for that. And what about you guys? Do you agree with the comments? For me, this thing with OP getting all tangled up in his answers about how he would deal with the situation if the son ended up not being his. First he says he would divorce his wife and ask for joint custody of their daughter, then says he would also ask for custody of their son, and in another reply he says he would stay married and adopt the kid. Honestly, I don't know if OP really knows what he would do if the result came back negative, or he doesn't want to admit to us, but I believe divorce would be the part of it. And what do you guys think? Now let's go to the update. Oh, and I hope you are enjoying the video so far. If so, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications to know when a new video is out. Now let's go to the first update. Update: Am I the idiot for getting a paternity test on my son who doesn't look like me? After being ripped to shreds on my first post, I didn't plan to ever log into this account again. Some recent events have persuaded me to update you all on what's been going on. I'll just get right to it. My wife and I are separated currently. I moved out, so she and the kids could stay in our home. I'm staying with my parents for now. I don't get to see my kids as often as I would like to. When I have a more stable living situation, we'll have joint custody of them. It's been very hard on me and the kids. I talk to them on the phone every night, and they both keep asking when I'm coming home. It breaks my heart that I can't answer that question. My daughter is taking it the worst. I feel awful that her world had been turned upside down by her own parents. I miss my family. I miss seeing my kids every day. I miss my wife. Our relationship has been put in limbo for now. She says she needs space to process, and doesn't know if she will be able to forgive me. I've apologized in every way that I know how to. At this point, I just have to give her the space she wants and hope she calms down. It would be horrible for us to throw away what we built. If separating has been this hard on the kids, divorce is going to shatter them. She seems open to seeking couples counseling. It gives me some hope we can work past this. I admit I didn't want to hold myself accountable before. I couldn't see how my actions were subconsciously harmful to my son. It was never my intention, but I did treat my son differently due to his skin color, when you strip it down to its roots. I realized how bad I effed up when I felt ashamed thinking my wife has probably told her family why we separated. They used to think really highly of me. Now they all probably think I'm a racist, and I have no one to blame for that but myself. With all the craziness going on in the world, I know that I need to be more aware of my actions. My kids deserve to have their family to be safe haven from racism. It scares me thinking about the type of world I will send them out into where they could be racially profiled in most places. I can't imagine if it were my son on the news instead of one of those other poor guys. I'll never let anything get in the way of my relationship with him again. Thanks all. I'm glad OP seems very admit to be the best dad he can be to both of his children, and I hope he continues this way, no matter if he stays married or divorces his wife. Regarding OP's marriage, I agree that he made a lot of mistakes, but I don't know if I can completely condemn him. I don't know what I would do in his situation, if I would be able to live forever with this doubt, but at the same time, I completely understand his wife's reaction. She was accused of cheating, of tricking OP into marrying her, and even of lying about the paternity of their child, all of this by her own husband. That sucks. The trust is broken, there's no way the relationship won't be shaken. The fact that she's open to couples therapy is a good thing. You'll need it if the intention is to save this marriage, or at least find a way to co-parenting. And what did you guys think of this update? Did you also expect this reaction from OP's wife? Now let's go to the last update. An update for those who still message me asking how things turned out. It's been over a year and a half since I used this account. I stopped replying a long time ago, because to put it bluntly, I felt like shit when I was reminded of what cost me to make this account in the first place, even though most of the DMs I got weren't bad. I was shocked, but flattered to see dozens of messages still coming in as recently as a few months ago. I want to give an update on my life for those people. I'm single, my ex-wife and I had our divorce finalized early in 2022. We had gotten back together for almost a year after I told her about the paternity test. I made promises to be a better husband and I believe that I kept those promises even though it didn't work. Unfortunately, things were not the same despite both of our best efforts, including months of counseling, couples counseling and private counseling for her. The fact of the matter is she could never forgive me enough to trust me, so it was never going to work. Towards the end she didn't even want to be intimate with me in any way, so much that I slept most nights on the couch or in my kids' rooms. We became roommates. I would have kept trying to fix things forever, but she was willing to face the fact that it was over way before I could. I still have a lot of love for her and I think I will forever. I'm not ashamed to say I haven't gotten over how devastating it was, even though it's my fault. I developed depression badly, which I know some people would say I deserve. I even had to quit my old job due to it. I still miss her, and even more I miss what we had together. I dread the day that I will hear that she is in a relationship with someone else, because I know it will come someday. I have an apartment to myself now. It took a while for me to get on my feet. My kids, now 8 male, almost 6 female, spend every other weekend with me and I get them 50-50 when there are breaks from school. My son is very athletic and is very good at soccer. As he has gotten older I have seen more of myself in him than I did in his youth. He hasn't heard about the paternity test and I hope he never will. Me too OP, me too. He's a great kid. I work hard to make up for the time lost when I was anxious to get too close to him. My daughter is still my mini-me. She loves me almost as much as I love her. She's athletic too, loves gymnastics and soccer. I think a lot about how if I hadn't needed a paternity test they might have another sibling, not a good thing to dwell on. My life went in a direction I didn't expect. It's not perfect, but it's getting better every day. I have a lot to be grateful for and I remind myself of that when it is hard. My kids are all that matters. Thanks for caring. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side you were on, this ended the way most people expected. Divorce, and I understand her. How could she continue married with someone who thinks she would do something like that? She couldn't. Regarding OP, I hope he doesn't dwell on the past, accept that you made a mistake and try to move on. Reliving your mistakes and thinking the worst won't help you or your children. I hope things get better OP, good luck. And that's it for today everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.